All right, so we're going to be talking about today supporting our refugee ELLs with their social emotional needs. So by the end of today's presentation, you will be able to identify the difference between refugees and immigrant. You'll be able to provide 5 different strategies to cater to their social emotional needs, and you'll feel confident to implement strategies with colleagues and community. Let me know, you can either unmute yourself and share, or in the chat, let me know what are the students that you're working with. What population do you work with the most? Are you seeing an increase of refugees in your area? So from where? Let me know in the chat, or you can just share.
Oh, for me, I don't work with this population. You know, I'm in China at a bilingual school, and it's a pretty stable population. So yeah, I'm just interested in learning about different strategies and things like that. But no, this population isn't one for me. But I do have kids with social emotional needs, definitely.
I mean, really, all of our students need us to really be able to support them with this. You know, we're not just teachers, we're counselors, and we're nurses, and we're parents, and we're friends. I mean, we wear so many hats as teachers, and I think counselors is really right there with being a teacher right now. So awesome. Well, we're glad you're here, Claudine. Anybody else you guys want to share if you have refugee students, or maybe you don't and you're just kind of preparing, or you just want to hear how to use these strategies with your ELLs because they work with your ELLs who, you know, might be born in the US or born in your country that you're working with.
I don't think that I have any refugee students that I'm aware of right now. I do have a lot of immigrant students, and I have a lot of students that come from Honduras, and I know that it's they have a lot of traumatic experiences from being there. I think it's, you know, very impoverished, and there's a lot of crime, and so you know, I think there's probably definitely some similarities to refugee students.
Yes, definitely. Great, thanks for sharing, Nikki. Shannon, do you want to share about your student population you work with?
I actually also have quite a few students that come from Honduras, so I see similar things as to what Nikki was saying. And then also just, I think, thinking about the virtual students that were out all last year, just helping them adjust to first being back in school, and then especially for some of our beginner students now adjusting to school and the language overload almost to some extent.
Yes. So especially if, you know, these ELLs, if they've been in a non-English environment for the whole year and only getting that little bit of English through virtual learning can really be a setback for them. So it's probably a big adjustment for them to be in an English dominant environment again.
Definitely.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get moving here. So Nikki, you kind of hit this right on. We talked about refugees and immigrants. And so let's define those so we understand what we're talking about. And there are some, you know, these strategies can be used with both. So, you know, just because you might not have a true refugee student doesn't mean that these won't work. So a refugee is a person who, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion, is outside the country of their nationality and is unable to, or owing to such a fear, is unwilling to avail him or herself of the protection of that country. So in simple terms, they are fleeing their country due to the situations that are happening. We're seeing this right now. We've seen this with Syria, with Afghanistan. In Panama, we have a large amount of refugees coming from Venezuela because it's just a very difficult environment right now that they cannot live in. So they're leaving for different reasons, but you're seeing different pockets of people leaving and coming into different areas. And so if you don't have refugees yet, you might get them over this year. So different from an immigrant. An immigrant is a foreign national who is issued a visa to live and work permanently in the United States. Now, I know a lot of our students might not fall into either category. They might, you know, be more on the refugee side because, like you're saying, in Honduras, you know, the situations are very terrible, even if they're not defined as a refugee student. They might have had a very traumatic time, you know, entering into the US or just a very traumatic time living in their home country. So the students we're working with are coming from a lot, and they need us to be able to recognize that and work with them and meet them where they're at. And the beautiful thing is that it doesn't take a lot to know for us to show them how much we care, how much we want to help them, how excited we are to work with them. Those things go a long way with our students and their families. And just a note, this is something through research that I was really surprised about. Actually, about 85% of our ELL students in K through 5 are American born students. So I think that's something we need to be careful about too, is even if their families might come from Honduras or, wherever, they actually, a large majority of them are born in the US, and that's what they know, and that's the culture they know. So that's also really important to take that into consideration, to not, that we don't just label our students and say, oh, well, their family is from, here, so they must have understanding of what it's like living there. They might not. So that's really important to kind of have that understanding of if they were US born, where they were born, what their upbringing might have looked like, how long they've been in the US for. All of those types of questions are important to know. So in the past 25 years, more than 1.8 million refugees have resettled in the United States. So this is why this is really important. And I see that there's going to be, hopefully an increase of helping some of these people in the next couple years who are relocating and really just fleeing from really difficult countries and situations. So we need to be prepared for that if you haven't worked with refugees before. So how can we help? The biggest thing that we need to do is help the students and families. We're really not just working with just the students. The families also need our help. And I know sometimes that feels like an added weight, and we have so little time to begin with. How can we help the families too? Well, we're going to talk about some ways that you can, and really creating a school environment where the families feel welcome and they know that they can get the help and support they need. So first, let's focus in on SEL. SEL is the process of developing the self-awareness, self-control, and interpersonal skills that are vital for school, work, and life success. SEL helps build a foundation that supports student success both personally and academically. When kids are equipped with social emotional skills, they're better able to learn and contribute to a positive environment. Okay, so how many of your schools focus on SEL and make this a priority in your curriculum, in your classrooms? Are you seeing these shifts where they're taking more time to do things like morning meeting or end of the day check-in, anything like that? Have you seen that? You can share in the comments, or you can unmute yourself and share if you're seeing this shift and you're seeing this become a priority in your schools.
For me, I feel like the district where I work in, it's definitely like a buzzword, and I think there's more of an awareness around it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, as an ELL teacher, I'm not given any curriculum of any kind. So, and it's kind of funny because the classroom teachers are on the opposite end of the spectrum, where everything is like scripted, where they have to follow a pacing guide day by day and a script and everything. And so I think there's like, there's kind of a, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but it's kind of like there's an awareness there, but there's also like the panic of getting through the curriculum for the classroom teachers. And so it's like at those types of things that it makes me happy that I don't have to stay on a pacing guide, and I do have the flexibility to kind of meet the, the social and emotional needs of my students.
Yes, there's that balance. It's like you want something to help guide you, but you don't want to be so, scripted and have to be stuck on this that you can't take that time, especially when we see our students needing to have that time to talk about something that's going on or to share as a class and build that social emotional learning as a class. Definitely. Claudine said all classes are required to use morning meetings and brain breaks. I love that. I find the morning meeting is one of the most powerful ways to really address these skills and to really just using, there's so many incredible children's books now that help to bring up a topic that can be a really difficult topic, especially if you're working with younger students. But through the pictures and through the story, you can bring up those topics and really help share and give your students an opportunity to share what's going on. So Shannon said, in our district, students go to an SEL class once a week in addition to the practices being used in individual classrooms. That's great. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yes, Claudine said, morning meetings are also great for ELLs to develop speaking and listening skills. 100% agree. All right, so let's get in here and go. We're going to talk about 5 different things that you can do to help support the SEL of your refugee students and your ELLs. So the first thing is to learn about your students. You want to learn as much as you can about your refugee students' cultures and invite the students to share their knowledge with their classmates. Students may want to ask questions, perhaps tell you about their experience in their home country. Welcome all discussions and learn about your refugees' experiences. Now, this can be really hard and this can be really tricky. Some students, are open and want to share about their home culture, about maybe what's going on in the news, about what they're hearing at home. If you work with older students, that might be more of a possibility. If you work with younger students, they might not have much to share. Or maybe it's a very difficult situation that they don't want to talk about it at all. Maybe they are blocking it out. So you have to learn how to handle this and how to pull that out of your students so that they feel welcome, they feel comfortable, and they feel open to share if they want. We never want to force our students to share if they don't want to share about it. These topics are really sensitive and they can be really difficult to communicate about in a large classroom situation. But when you create a classroom where you are showing and showcasing different cultures and different countries and how cool that is, that's going to help them to want to share. When I worked in Panama, we had a very international community, people from all over the world. And so having parents come in and share, even if they didn't speak English, we try to have a translator, or now Google translates. You can press that translate button and it can have a conversation. So it can really, it's technology these days is a lot better. But having them share about their culture, that gave that student so much pride in their home culture when they saw the other peers really interested. So doing things like that, family experiences, again, we have to be sensitive that we don't want to push that. We want to just provide those opportunities so that those parents who are excited and want to be a part of that, they take advantage of that. For those students who don't, that's okay. But having, books in your students' class, your students' language in your classroom, having books about their culture in their classroom, that's going to help them share about their culture and their experiences. When they see a picture that represents a holiday they celebrate, that's going to make them excited and that's going to help them connect and want to share about it. So you having that understanding of what's going on and learning about that student's culture is where it begins. The next thing that you can do is to ask your students how they are feeling daily. And Nikki, you kind of hit this on the head, and the beauty of being an ESL teacher is you don't have that pacing guide, that scripted guide. You don't have 25 students at once usually. And you usually can build that more intimate relationship with your students because you get that more one-on-one time or small group time. So making that a priority to ask them how they're doing, to check in with them is really important. At first, they might not say anything. At first, they might just, say, oh, fine. Maybe they can't communicate right away. Maybe the first couple minutes of your class, you let them draw about what they're feeling. And then as they improve, you might have them write a sentence about how they're feeling. In equipping ELLs, there are daily check-in journals that have, different character words and growth mindset. That's probably for students who are not newcomers a little bit further along. But those are great ways that you could just have that every time when they come in, or maybe just do it Mondays and Fridays and give them an opportunity to check in with you and let you know how they're feeling and what's going on. Another excellent place to do that is through shared journal dialogues. And that's where you just let them write about whatever they want. There's no grading on it. It's just a journal where they get to share what's going on. And then once a week, you respond to that. And so again, setting up that routine. So maybe on Mondays, they write, and then on Fridays, they write, and then you can, at one time, every couple of weeks, respond to what they're writing. That just gives them that space and that place to share what's going on if they want to tell you. Does anybody do anything else of how you get to check in with your students and they're just how they're feeling? And no, that's okay. All right, let's keep going then. So one way, if you have a student who's a newcomer and they're not sharing, then you want to give them some sentence starters. Maybe the pictures in the ELL toolkit, which is in equipping ELLs. I think it's ELL toolkit number 2 or 3 that you have available. That talks about emotions. So starting at the beginning of the year and sharing about emotions, letting them express emotions, letting them learn how to use the vocabulary with emotions right from the start. That's going to give them confidence to be able to share when they've had a rough day, or share when they're really excited about something, or share when they're just sad and they're having, there's just a lot of emotions going on. They can't really explain it. So giving them a sentence starter, giving them vocabulary pictures is really important to do at the beginning of the year. Here are some sentence starter that you can use, for a newcomer. I am what? Give them picture cards, let them point to it. Just to let them know they can express themselves is a really powerful thing for our refugee students. Our level 2s, I am feeling this because, and then level 3 and 4s, I am feeling this today because of this. And then when I feel this way, I think of, I love that additional sentence starter. When I feel this way, I think of this. So letting them really find an opportunity to express themselves with you. Taking the time to slow down and do that is really important. All right, number 3, get to know the families by having regular meetings. Okay, I know some of you have large caseloads and you feel like this is not a possibility to do this that regularly, but know that just by you showing that you are there, that you are, you're there to support them, you're there to love on their student and their child in your classroom, that goes such a long way. That helps eliminate, there's so much anxiety for the parents of our ELL students. And when we're speaking about refugee families who, if they're coming because they're fleeing a country, the chances they might not know English. So if you have families who don't know English and a student who doesn't know English, it is extremely overwhelming. So how can you help support that family? Do you have a social worker in your school that you can work with that can show and translate documents to show opportunities that they have in the community? If your community is prepared and set up, then they should have some refugee support already in place. So can you get them, the basic needs they need, housing, letting them know the opportunities that are there. Trying to have things translated. If you use talking points, that is an excellent app and way to communicate with the parents of your students in a variety of different languages. They're continuing to add new languages. So that gets sent right to their phones. That's an excellent way. That's better than emails, because a lot of times parents don't read emails. They might not have a computer that they use, but most people now in the world have a phone. So if you can use an app like Talking Apps, there's a few other ones out there as well, and try to just reach out to them. Let them know that you're there for them. Let them know that you're there to help if they need anything. So even doing a virtual meeting, if you can do home visits, again, do what your school has, the policies you have in place. I know that home visits are not always allowed. So make sure that you go through your principal, talk about those things, but see how you as a school can create a welcoming environment for your refugees and your ELL families. Nikki said, I love Talking Points. I know it is an incredible app that is changing. It's transforming the lives of our ELL families. And I'll just tell you real fast. I know that because we live in Panama, my daughters went to Spanish speaking schools and we were the only Americans that went there. And we wanted them to have full immersion experience. And even though I spoke Spanish, I am, pretty fluent in Spanish. I've taken 10 years of it. It was very stressful sending your child to a school that doesn't speak your same language. Every paper that came home, I would second guess it and say, is this really what they're asking for? Wait, what was that date again? What am I supposed to bring in for this week? And just feeling so overwhelmed that I was making a mistake. I wasn't understanding something correctly. And that my daughter probably had forgotten many things because I didn't understand and I didn't like to ask. So I just say, oh yeah, I understand. And I didn't understand. So if they could send it in my native language, English, and I'd be sure that I was understanding. So there is just power in helping the ease the anxiety and helping these families who are going through so much already. Imagine how much stress you're taking off of them. And that's point number 4 is imagine how much stress first you're taking off the parents when they know their child's in a safe place, that they're being taken care of, that the teacher is for them and is welcoming them and knows how to support them. That is taking off so much stress of those parents so that they can get set up, they can find jobs, they can do what they need to do to help establish their family in a new place. So remember that when, you're like, I don't know if I'm making a difference. You're making a difference. You are helping not just the student, but the families. And you're also making a difference in those students, okay? They are under a lot of stress. They've gone through so much more than probably most of us have ever experienced. And so just keeping that in mind, our main priority with our refugee students is not academics, okay? Even though that might be what the schools are pushing, it's not. We need to help them get set up. We need to help them feel safe. We need to help them work through some of the stress that they've gone through, that they're still going through, all these questions that they have. Now, we don't have an answer for everything. So we can't spend all of our days, working through these problems, but we can take the time, we can stop and take the time to give them the opportunity to share what's going on, to have the opportunity to just have a bad day and maybe they listen to a book on the computer instead of work on what they were working on. We need to have that awareness and know when they're just pushed to their limit and they just need a break and they just maybe need to go to the beanbag chair in the corner and just rest a little bit. It's okay to support our students that way, especially our refugee students. They've gone through a lot. But the cool thing is when we see what our students have gone through, they usually are the ones that come out just excelling. If they're here now in the United States, and Claudia and I know you're in China, so you might not have the same opportunities, but the amount of opportunities available here in the United States for our students is incredible. I was just signing up my daughters online for a STEAM camp at the library, like a 1-hour class, and just seeing all of the free things they have to offer. And they had an online English class for teens to talk and practice their English. And these are the opportunities that are free that are out there. And if we can show our students that, we can show our refugee families all these opportunities that are available. They're going to take advantage of that and they're going to soar because they've gone through so much already and they see the opportunities that are in front of them. And so these are just amazing students to get to work with, to walk alongside with, to give them the space to be who they are, to support them in their language development and their social emotional learning and really just help them soar. It's an incredible experience to work and with these students, with your newcomers, with your refugee students. Work alongside your social worker, because again, some of these problems are really, really difficult problems that they're going through, that they've gone through a lot of family. Maybe they've lost some loved ones. Many of our students are going through this, not just our refugee students right now, but talk with the social worker, have a plan in place of how do you, address some of those really difficult topics, either as a whole group in your classroom, one-on-one with your students. If you're not trained with social work and counseling, then you do want to get that support and knowing how to come alongside that. And your school social worker should be able to give you some books or question stems or ways to really help your students. And the last thing is to keep students engaged. So going back, we want to know when they need a break, when they're just stressed out, when they just had a bad day, and we need to give that to them. But we also, like I was saying, these students are so resilient. They are tenacious. They have gone through a lot, and the studies show that our refugee students, our newcomers, our immigrant students, they know how to come out of that and work hard and take advantage of the opportunities in front of them, and they soar. And that's what's really exciting. And so keep them engaged, give them appropriate materials that are at their language level, that they build confidence, that they enjoy school, that they want to keep working hard, that they see the opportunities in front of them and they take advantage of that. So we don't want to water things down. We don't want to dump things down. Okay. That's the opposite. If we do that, then these students who are already under a lot of stress, who've gone through a lot, they're going to check out and they're not going to keep with it because they're going to say, oh, well, my teacher doesn't really expect much of me, so I'm out of here. But if we keep the resources engaging, if we're keeping the support at their level where then they can build that confidence, they will succeed. All right. So try to make that time really as meaningful as you can. You want to have them speaking constantly. You want to be using pictures and scaffolding to support their needs. In Equipping ELLs, I hope that you're finding there are so many resources that are appropriate for your newcomers, for your refugees, for your intermediates, that keep them engaged, that keep them excited about learning, that keep them showing up and saying, oh, what are we going to learn today? I'm so excited. So that is what we want to be able to do, is give them those resources so that they are excited about learning, that they see learning English as something that's fun, and that in the end, we're creating students who are bilingual, trilingual, or more. I mean, these students are incredible. And so that's what we're doing. We're giving them that gift of being bilingual, of supporting them in their native language and supporting them by learning English at the same time. So just being aware of things that are not appropriate. So, and helping be an advocate for that. If you have your newcomers or your refugees in the homeroom classroom, the teacher's not scaffolding anything and expecting them to do grade level work without any support, have a conversation with that teacher, because that's going to just frustrate those students. It's going to help. It's going to keep them from being engaged. It's going to keep them from desiring to come to school. And so if you see that happening, be an advocate for these students and go and share with them ways that they can scaffold that activity to support their newcomers, their refugees in the homeroom classroom. So most importantly, these three things. We want to show our refugees that we care. Many of them have a family member in their home country and miss them dearly. Let them bring in pictures if they want. Let them, create a space that's theirs that makes them reminds them of home. We also need to advocate for our refugees and their families. Okay, they need to feel supported and welcome, not just from you, but from the whole school. So if you see that there is a large population in your school represented, have your school learn more about that population. Have them learn how they can, relate to that culture, how they can, what that culture sees as welcoming, not just as what we see as welcoming. So take some time to study that culture and see how you can really connect. Yes, provide resources in the community and online for the families. Like we said, use talking points, look in the community, see what community resources are available. So many of them are free. And so help those families get set up in a new country. And then last is to be patient with your refugee ELLs. Many will take their time to open up with you, but once they do, you will establish such a strong relationship. You'll be their favorite teacher because they will trust you. They know that you are for them, that you love them, that you welcome them, and that will make a lasting impact on them for their life. Okay, so you have this amazing opportunity right now this year to educate these global kids, these global citizens. I mean, what a powerful thing. You don't even have to leave your classroom and you get to work with kids from all around the world. And so know that just your smile, just those little things you do to help communicate with parents in their home language, to help your students feel safe in your classroom, those will make a lasting impact on them for life. All right, any questions or anything you want to share about just the students you're working with, or ways that you've seen successfully to help support them in their emotional learning?
Beth, I'm sorry, did you say where we could find the check-ins in Equipping ELLs?
Yes, I will put the link under this. I'll upload this and I will put the link under there so you can find them right away. I believe that they are in the August and September month, and then under intermediates, they should be in there. There's a printable version, and then there's a digital version. So you could just print them and do them, one together each time, or you could just assign them digitally.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And that helps highlights different mindsets and growth mindset, different characteristic traits, things like that. So you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want to do. And if you guys like those, let me know because we can add some more of those. Anything else? Here's some other resources for you. Coloring Colorado is an excellent website. They have so much great content that's really easy and digestible, especially working with, how the parents of refugees and just refugee students in general. Rescue.org is an international rescue committee that also has really great, helpful tips for how to work with refugee students. And then Equipping Else has the resources that you need to help engage your students and help them build that confidence and enjoy learning at the same time. So anything else before we head out today?
I wanted to just ask a quick question. You really got me thinking about the inviting parents like for a meeting.
Mhm.
So I have 42 students on my caseload. So it would be a lot, but I just don't know. I just don't know if you have any like other ideas of like how that might work logistically. My thoughts are I could offer a virtual meeting for like maybe like every other month or something for parents to just come and ask any questions they have, and maybe have an interpreter for the parents who don't speak English. I
Mhm.
just don't know. I know that for a lot of my families, virtual is really hard because their lack of devices and everything. So I didn't know if you had any other like suggestions or ideas more specific to that idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, keep it simple. With 42, that's a lot to try to be meeting with all of them. So I like that idea of doing like a virtual if you can, or just hosting it once a month and seeing who comes. You know, the parents have very busy lives. All parents do, all families do. And especially when you find out some of these parents might be working 2 or 3 jobs. So they might just not have the opportunity to engage with you. So if you present it, do what you can to start, like once a month, doing a virtual meetup or something, um, or even doing something where, you could just try to connect with the family in general. I know, like with the students I worked with, they had younger siblings, and so it's just kind of like hard for the parents to get away. So doing maybe like a virtual read aloud and having it read in English and Spanish, having someone translate it for you. And so it kind of invites the whole family in, and then share a little bit more about yourself and what you do and how they can connect with you, something like that. Um, or do, I don't know what it's like where you are with COVID and everything. But if you can have parents in and maybe just do like a open house, have the kids share one thing about themselves. We did, instead of doing open houses, we did, and parent teacher conferences, we did student-led conferences. And that was really powerful to have the students take ownership of their learning and share that with their parents. And we saw the parents so much more engaged because it wasn't this idea that like, oh, I'm going to come and hear like that my student is bad at this. I don't know. Sometimes I think parents have that idea that that's what parent teacher conferences are. But they really saw how much their child had done and progressed. And they felt that, that same, they were just so proud of their students. And so when we started shifting to those, we saw a huge increase in parent involvement, because it was their students who were sharing about it. And there were students who were just sharing all the work that they've done, and they didn't always see that at home. Parents don't always see what's going on in the classroom. So maybe doing something once a quarter like that of, just having, if you could have your students showcase something, or maybe having them record themselves and then sending it to the parents, just as a way to show off what your students are doing in the classroom. It kind of helps them engage with what's going on. I think talking points is the best way to get started, where you're just kind of consistently sharing things that are going on, happenings at school, maybe starting with a positive note once a month and just checking in and saying, sharing one positive thing you're seeing with their student. That, again, when it starts on a positive note, it really helps them engage with the school over thinking that it's just going to be bad things that are sent home from school. So it's kind of shifting that mindset. because school is very different in many other countries. So those things are going to stand out to them, that you're, reaching out, that you're an advocate for their child, that even sharing some of those things like, hey, did you know that you have this right as a parent of an ELL? Like giving them that voice to advocate to for their child can go a long way. So don't get, just think about the time you have and how maybe broadcasting one thing to all of them first. And then from there, maybe sending out one talking point chat, during the month of just like a positive thing they're doing, or a picture of their work, and just giving them really good feedback and having it translated. Something like that is just helpful to connect with the parents that way.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that we're not allowed. Well, I've been told that for confidentiality purposes and, cultural sensitivity, and we're not allowed to ask parents their immigration status and all those other things. And in the midst of all that, I don't feel comfortable even asking parents. I mean, I feel comfortable asking, where are you from? What languages do you speak? But I've never felt comfortable, and I don't know if it's appropriate to find out their story behind coming to the United States. I don't even know if they're refugees, because I don't know if it's appropriate. I don't feel comfortable, so I don't want them to think, oh, they're trying to get information about us.
Right.
How do we go about finding out if they even are refugees? And can you just talk a little bit about that whole thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, yes, I wouldn't address that if they don't bring it up. If your school, I would go first with the social worker to see if they can share any information about the family. If they know any information of if they just recently arrived. I would treat a refugee and a newcomer in the same situation, where they're probably coming from, a difficult country and learning English and probably new to the US. If you have a student who, is testing it and they're pretty strong in English, then they probably aren't coming as a refugee. That's just assuming. Of course you want to make assumptions, but I wouldn't go and pry into the family and say, oh, tell me your story, how can I support you? I would work on just letting them come to the school, seeing what the school already can share with you, and then just getting to know the student and building that relationship with the student. Again, not making that the big thing that you need to know, but just being there to show them, like, oh, tell me about yourself. Some of them might be able to share about where they're from. Some might not. Again, if a lot of our students are born in the US, 85% of K through 5th grade are born in the US. So those kids could be coming into school as newcomers, and they could be born in the US. And so we don't want to assume that a family is a refugee family if we don't know. So I would just proceed with caution and focus more on the student and the language level they're at, and what you need to do to help support them in that language level. And then if you find out more about their story or ways that you can help them, I think that's the more important thing, is knowing how to support them more than knowing their story. If they wanted to share their story with you, then of course that would be helpful. But it's more, if your role in the classroom is to support that student and their language level, and to be a safe place for them to learn and to grow. So if it doesn't come up, then, do what you can. If you're concerned that the family doesn't have maybe some resources, or they, could use some resources, talk with your social worker and see if there's ways that you can just share about opportunities in the community, not targeting anything specific, but even just families who recently arrived. Maybe they don't even know there's libraries, for example. I know in Panama, we don't have libraries. So that might be something. Just like helpful pamphlets are like, here's some opportunities if you're looking for free things in the community that might help you. So keeping it really generic. Again, you don't want to assume or, place that on anybody if you don't know for sure. So I would go more on supporting the student you have in your class and supporting their language development and their social emotional learning. And then if you find out more things that will help you support them better, then that's great. Does that help answer your question? All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming today, and we will be meeting on Sunday for our new resources release party. So hopefully you'll be there. It's going to be at 8:00 p.m. on this Sunday. I will send out a reminder about that. So, all right, thanks everybody, and thanks Cindy for this wonderful information. I will talk to you guys soon.